everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher, and in this video today, I'm going to talk about what's going on. I'm fine. I'm just, I've had some sort of horrible stomach ailment. I don't know. We don't know. Everything seems to be fine, but it's some kind of gastroenteritis or something. I've never, So it's just taking a while for me to get back to speed. So things are moving very slowly, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going with the slowness of it and taking my time and enjoying the moments when I feel well enough to do something. And my husband and I usually take long walks, and the walks have become very short because I just can't do more than a little walk. Also, it's been quite hot, so I'll show you some footage of a few of our walks as well. And I'll show you what I'm doing right now on this mixed media spherical sculpture that is part of a series and that I've been working on for a while now. I hope all of you are well, and I'll continue, but just turn the camera around. I'm attaching the final wire of the fairy lights, which are going to kind of weave in and around. And I have patched up this top part. This is the opening. I'm still have quite a bit to sew in here. And then I have all of these bits and pieces of old, embroidery stuff that I may or may not attach. But I am in the final stretch here, and I'm just really taking my time. I'm still not feeling 100%, but I'm getting a little bit better every day, so that's great. And also just the feeling that I am so aware and grateful. I've been able to completely go with the flow of this illness. My way is to kind of rail through things, I grew up with this very kind of, you just pull up your bootstraps, you just keep plugging along, you just keep pushing. And to have this other way of just kind of relaxing into whatever is happening, which was feeling really awful, and just not push and just step back and take naps, which I never do. I'm continuing to attach my last bit of fairy lights, and I'll turn these on so you can see. Just coming in here and working for an hour or two instead of really pushing myself to just keep going. I really had to just pull back and go with it and be okay with that and find a way to be grateful. I have so much to be grateful for. So this weekend, we're having some friends over, and my friend Kapil loves to cook, and he loves to cook food from his country, Indian food, which I really have not spent a lot of time cooking. So the last time we got together, he said, "Do you want to cook together? I'll teach you some of the stuff that I know about cooking Indian food." And I was like, oh my God, yes, I would love that. So we're going to go shopping for Indian food, because in New York City, there are little areas that you can buy food specific to a specific region in the world. And there's a whole area where just filled with shops selling Indian foods and spices. And there's a whole area where just filled with shops selling Indian foods and spices. So I'm very excited. We're going to go do that. And then I kept running into different people or seeing people And so I'd say, oh, we're having a couple people over, why don't you come? Well, now it's gotten to be a number of people are coming. And we haven't done this since pre-COVID. I mean, we used to give dinner parties where we would have our friends and everyone would gather, and it was really nice, and I would cook, and I love cooking. And so, 10, 15 people, and it was just lovely. And we used to do this regularly. I mean, every other month or so. And I haven't done this since before COVID. So I'm really looking forward to it. And having said all of that, I decided I was going to make an icebox cake because one of my closest girlfriends wrote her second book, and it's this. She's the chief baking officer at Magnolia Bakery, and she's the one responsible for having Magnolia Bakery all over the world. She's opened stores all over the world. And this is her second book, and it's specifically on icebox cakes and icebox desserts. And I even did some recipe testing for her before she published the book, just to make sure that the recipe was accurate and everything was as she wanted. So this book is really special to me because. And I'll put a link to it below. If you're not familiar with icebox cakes, desserts, what's really cool about them is you don't turn on the oven. They're all done without turning on an oven. There's no baking. And she also has cheesecakes in here. In any case, I'm going to make the blueberry icebox cake. But the other thing about this cookbook is that it's really easily adapted to different things. Like you can use a different kind of fruit, or you can mix and match. And so I'm doing the blueberry, but not exactly the way it's written. I'm going to do the blueberry in a springform cake pan the way she does her roasted strawberry icebox cake. So I'm going to do that. And the other thing that she does is she doesn't sweeten the whipped cream very much. And so, which is the filling between the layers. And so you can, sweeten it more, or you can sweeten it with different things. You can really adapt it. So I love this cookbook, and I'm so proud of her because she's worked so hard on it. So that's what I am up to. I am shopping with my friend Kapil tomorrow in Little India, or I don't know if it's called Little India, but we're going to go shopping for Indian spices and ingredients, and then I'm going to be making the blueberry icebox cake and having friends over this weekend, which is really exciting. If you've ever done an icebox cake, tell me what you made, and if you like it. I'd never even heard of an icebox cake until Bobby told me about it, and I was like, what? I've never even heard of this. So a couple things that I've learned through this process of just feeling really awful and just kind of having to slow down and take things as they come. One is that just to slow down and that's fine, and to enjoy the experience of slowing down and really take pleasure in this other way of being, which is not the way I usually operate in my studio. I usually am moving at a much quicker pace, but to be able to just kind of enjoy this other pace, this different pace, and be not only fine with it, but really embrace it. So that was a big one for me. And then the second thing was to really feel that gratitude, which is so important for me in so many different aspects of my life, especially when I'm feeling fearful or I'm not feeling great, or it's really important for me to go to the gratitude. And the last thing is this idea of I have to versus I get to. And this is one of the things that has been really pivotal in not only my work here in the studio, but also in just my life. Taking a moment when I feel that pressure of I have to do whatever it is, and tell myself, no, I get to do this, because that really brings home how fortunate I am to be able to live one more day. Especially as I get older, every single day is a gift. And when I live that way, my life is so much better and I am so much happier. So those are just a couple of things. One of the things that's really been interesting about not feeling well has been realizing how incredibly lucky I have been for the better part of my life, in that I've just been ridiculously healthy. And so I'm not a good judge of of illness, because I'm so not used to it. And it's a really good thing for me to realize that I have been so healthy my whole life. So when I get ill, I don't have a good idea of what that really means, because people who live with chronic illness or just have been ill for, a lot of their lives certainly are going through things that I can't imagine. And, so that was kind of an eye-opener for me in a way, was having that realization that I just don't know what it's like to feel sick, because I so rarely do. And I'm as I said, I'm very, very lucky in that way. So when I feel sort of, grumpy about the fact that I'm not 100% yet, I just remind myself of that. And it does make me kind of stop. It also, there's, this feeling of just like acceptance towards it, that this is the way it is for right now, and it's going to change and I will feel better again. But that for right now, I'm not 100%, and that's okay. I just have to be aware and take my time and rest if I need to. And I guess the bigger thing for me right now is just feeling a lot of gratitude. Maybe I don't need to. Well, I think I do. Sometimes when I'm going through a couple of layers of this metal and other material, I just use my pliers. It's just easier. I have a friend who's coming into town to visit, and so we're going to go see some theater and other stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it. This is a friend that we met her and her husband when we were traveling in Norway, and we were both at the same hotel, and we just started talking, and then we ended up having dinner together, and then the next morning they were leaving, so we had breakfast with them, and it was really fun. We just kind of hit it off, and then she and I have kept in touch, and it's really nice when that happens. It's one of the wonderful perks of travel is the people you meet. And some people want to keep in touch and other people don't, and that's okay. Either way, it's fun. Okay, I think I'm just going to so I just have this bit here to here and the rest of this, and that's kind of it. This sphere I've called the floor and the skylight. And I tell the story about the floor and the skylight and why I call it this in an earlier video. But just to recap, I was in a really terrible place in my life. And this was a long time ago. And I knew I needed to make some really big changes. And I had hit a real bottom, which is what the third sphere, what remains, is really about. That kind of represents that bottom where everything's blown apart. My whole world is just sort of crumbling and shattering. And I know that I have to find some other way to learn how to live. And so the following sphere, the fourth sphere, the beginning of after, is that moment of beginning to create a different life. And there's a lot of hope, but there's also determination and commitment and fear, a lot of fear, because I had no idea what I was doing or how I was going to do this, or if I even could. And then this sphere, the floor and the skylight, is the day that I came home after meeting with some people who all were dealing with a similar addiction as I was. I came home and I had a skylight. It was like an alcove-shaped apartment. And I came up the stairs and I lay on the floor under my skylight. and the rays of the light were just at that moment coming through. And I could feel the sunlight hitting me. And I had a moment, just a glimmer, where I felt utter and complete relief. And I had this feeling that I knew I was going to be okay. And it was fleeting. And then that left, and the doubt came in, and the fear, and everything else. But it was a moment that I've never forgotten. And that was the first day that I was of the beginning of my recovery from having had a pretty horrific eating disorder. So this sphere to me represents light. The light that I continue to move towards. It's sort of, the light is this, equates to an ideal way of living one's life. A life that is driven by action, of trying to be the best version of me that I can be, which, as many of you who follow me know, is driven by kindness, is driven by an acceptance of what is going on around me that I have no control over, and also the realization of all the things I do have control over, and creating a life where I am very much concentrating on the things that I can control, my actions, the way I think of something, my perception, the words I use, and the way I interact in the world. And it's not perfect by any means. It's filled with mistakes and falling into old patterns of behavior that are not ideal. But continuing to move toward the light being the ideal that I work toward every day. And so it's interesting that I got so sick after I did the live stream that day. That morning before I did the live stream, I was already not feeling great, and I continued to just feel worse and worse. And being so sick it's going on now, this will go on 3 weeks after this weekend. So that'll be my 3rd week. I'm into my 2nd. That's a long period for me, and I'm not used to that. And I'm really grateful that I'm not used to that. That's something that I feel, I'm really grateful for that. That's something that I have really, really been concentrating on, is just that gratitude that this is unusual for me, and that there's so many people in the world where they are battling illness and just of all different kinds, and how hard that is. And so as I was creating this sphere, which was symbolically all about that first day of a very long road of recovery, that I was then also feeling really awful and had to really slow down. That was interesting. And I'm grateful for the lessons that I'm learning. Patience, I think, is equivalent to acceptance. When I'm trying to push things through, when I'm trying to rush through things, I'm missing out on a lot of other things. And so by pulling back, by being okay with the fact that I just am not feeling up to par, I've been able to kind of relax into this other way of moving in the world, a slower paced movement, and being completely okay with it and really embracing it. In the last video I did, I talked about how I was feeling sort of, really impatient with the process. It was taking so long. And then as I was speaking, I realized that just by saying that out loud, it gave me this moment of relief that it was okay, that things were just going to kind of go at the pace that they were going to go, and I could be okay with that. And it reminded me of the work I've had to do around migraines, which I've had for years now, and how when I fight the migraine, when I start feeling that fear welling up, oh no, is this going to be, am I going to have to, how bad is it going to get? Is the light going to start to noise? All of it, there's a lot of fear, and it's easy for me to start fighting it. And the more I fight it, the worse the migraine gets. Whereas if I'm able to, and by the way, I realize that people who suffer from acute migraines, there's no fighting or leaning into it. It's like you're in it and it's just horrific. And I know people like that, and I'm not talking about that. But what I am talking about is that when I'm able to lean in to the pain, that it dissipates a little bit. It doesn't remove it by any means, but it does often dissipate. And it was the same with this process of feeling like this fighting against the illness and feeling so tired and feeling so run down and fighting it and feeling fear around it, and then letting go of that and just leaning into it. And I was able to get to this other place of acceptance around it. And that in and of itself really, really allowed me to move through this process in an easier way. So have you ever had an experience like that? Let me know. And tell me about your plans. And if you're making an icebox cake, or if you have ever made an icebox cake, tell me about that. And in the meantime, enjoy your time, and I'm sending all of you love. Thanks so much for watching.